Welcome aboard, friends. You're now tuned into Black Magic. We're super excited to share today's story with you. What if Dragon sensed Harry's magic at age 4 and an entire colony flew to Privet Drive to claim him as Dragon Lord? If you enjoy what we do here, the best way to support us is by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We read every comment. Ready? Let's go. Chapter 1. The claiming the ancient dragon. Privet jerked awake from her century-long slumber, golden eyes snapping open as an unfamiliar sensation rippled through her consciousness. Something had disturbed the magical currents, not the usual ebb and flow, but a pulse so powerful it had traveled across continents to reach her in the Romanian dragon sanctuary. "What is this?" she rumbled, stretching massive wings that spanned the length of 3 buses. The younger dragons nearby scattered respectfully as she rose. Across the world, in a cold, sterile house on Privet Drive, 4-year-old Harry Potter huddled in his cupboard under the stairs. His small body shook with sobs he desperately tried to muffle. Uncle Vernon had thrown him in here after Harry somehow turned his teacher's wig blue during class. He didn't understand how it happened, things just did when he was scared or angry. "Freak." His uncle's voice still rang in his ears. "You'll stay in there until you learn to be normal." Harry wrapped skinny arms around his knees. "I didn't mean to," he whispered to nobody. Something inside him twisted painfully, like a knot being pulled tight. He squeezed his eyes shut as pressure built in his chest, unfamiliar yet somehow right. The feeling intensified until Harry couldn't contain it anymore. "I just want someone to want me," he cried out. The dam broke. Magic, wild, untamed, and ancient, erupted from the small boy. It blasted outward, shattering light bulbs throughout the house and cracking the foundations. The magical wave rippled outward, invisible to Muggle eyes but bright as a beacon to magical creatures. In Romania, Privet's nostrils flared. "Impossible," she growled, drawing curious looks from the younger dragons. "After all these centuries." A younger dragon named Emberscale approached cautiously. "Elder Privet, what troubles you?" "A dragon lord awakens," she answered, voice like rolling thunder. "In Britain." Whispers erupted among the gathered dragons. Dragon lords were nearly mythical, humans born with the rare ability to communicate with and command dragons, forming bonds deeper than any magic known to wizardkind. The last had lived over 5 centuries ago. "Are you certain?" asked Emberscale, scales glittering with excitement. "The humans drove us from Britain generations ago." "I would know that magic anywhere," Privet rumbled, stretching massive wings. "Gather the colony. We fly tonight." At Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Albus Dumbledore was enjoying a quiet evening with a cup of hot chocolate when several silver instruments on his desk began whirring frantically. He set down his cup with a frown. "Most unusual," he murmured, examining a particularly agitated silver device that was emitting puffs of purple smoke. This instrument monitored the magical protection surrounding Harry Potter. Fawkes the Phoenix let out a concerned trill from his perch. "Yes, indeed," Dumbledore agreed, rising swiftly. "Something is happening at Privet Drive." Petunia Desley was having a perfectly normal evening until every glass in her kitchen cabinet shattered simultaneously. She screamed, dropping the plate she'd been washing. "Vernon," she shrieked. "It's happening again." Vernon thundered down the stairs, face purpling with rage. "The boy," he growled, stomping toward the cupboard under the stairs. He flung open the door to find Harry curled into a ball, surrounded by a pulsing green light. "What are you doing, boy?" Vernon bellowed, reaching in to grab Harry, only to yank his hand back with a yelp when the light burned his fingers. Harry looked up, green eyes glowing with the same eerie light that surrounded him. He didn't understand what was happening, but for the first time in his young life, he felt powerful. "Make it stop!" Petunia screamed from the hallway. "The neighbors will see." Vernon made another attempt to grab Harry, but the light intensified, pushing him back. "This ends now," he roared, raising his hand. A deafening roar from outside froze everyone in place. Dudley came thundering down the stairs. "Dad! There's something huge in the sky." Vernon rushed to the window, pulling back the curtain, and stumbled backward with a strangled cry. Petunia joined him, her scream dying in her throat. Circling above Privet Drive were dragons. Not one or two, but dozens, massive beasts with scales of every color, wings blocking out the stars as they descended toward number 4. "It's coming for me," Harry whispered from the hallway, having crawled out of his cupboard. His voice held no fear, only wonder. The Dursleys backed away as Harry walked past them to the front door. The strange light still surrounded him, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "Boy! Get back here!" Vernon found his voice, lunging for Harry, but it was too late. Harry had opened the front door and stepped outside. The residents of Privet Drive would later give conflicting accounts to authorities. Some spoke of military aircraft, others of hallucinations from contaminated water. None could explain the child who walked out alone to face whatever had come. Harry stood barefoot on the lawn, gazing upward at the most magnificent sight he'd ever seen. The largest dragon, scales gleaming like burnished gold in the streetlights, circled lower. Its wingspan cast the entire property into shadow. "Hello," Harry said simply, unafraid. The golden dragon landed with surprising grace for its enormous size, powerful legs absorbing the impact that nonetheless made the ground tremble. Behind it, other dragons landed in the surrounding gardens and streets, crushing perfectly manicured hedges and parked cars. Inside number 4, the Dursleys huddled together in terror. Vernon had tried calling the police, but the phone line was dead. Several neighbors had the same idea, the few who weren't hiding under their beds, but found their phones similarly useless. The great golden dragon lowered its massive head until it was level with Harry. Its eyes, ancient, intelligent, and swirling with magic, examined him carefully. "You called us, young one," the dragon said in a rumbling voice that somehow Harry understood perfectly, though it wasn't English. "After so many centuries, your kind calls to mine once more." "I didn't mean to bother you," Harry replied politely. The dragon made a sound like rolling boulders that Harry somehow knew was laughter. "You are no bother, Harry Potter. I am Phyretalon, elder of the Romanian sanctuary. Your magic sang to us across the world, the magic of a dragon lord." "What's a dragon lord?" Harry asked, reaching out a small hand. Phyretalon lowered her head further, allowing Harry's fingers to brush against her scales. The moment they touched, the green light around Harry flared brilliantly, and new energy coursed through him, warm and wild and right. "One born with the ability to speak our tongue, to understand our ways," Phyretalon explained. "One who can bridge the gap between dragons and humans, as it was in the ancient days before wizards feared our power and drove us from these lands." A commotion from behind caught Harry's attention. The Dursleys had emerged from the house, Vernon wielding a shotgun with shaking hands. "Gee, get away from him, you monsters!" Vernon shouted, his bravado undermined by his trembling voice. A smaller, copper-scaled dragon snarled, moving protectively between Harry and the Dursleys. Vernon fired in panic, the buckshot bouncing harmlessly off the dragon's scales. "No!" Harry cried out, stepping between them. "Don't hurt them." The dragon stilled at his command, though several continued to growl menacingly at Vernon. "They're afraid," Harry explained to Phyretalon. "They have mistreated you," the great dragon responded, sniffing the air. "I smell your hunger, your pain. These humans were charged with your care, yet they have failed." Harry didn't deny it. "They don't like magic. Yet magic flows through you more powerfully than any human I have sensed in centuries," Phyretalon said. "Young lord, we have come to claim you as our own. Will you join us? Learn the ways of dragons and take your rightful place." Harry looked back at the Dursleys, the only family he had ever known, yet never truly family. They stared at him with fear and disgust, not a hint of love or concern for what might happen to him. "You want me?" Harry asked Phyretalon, voice small but hopeful. More than that, the dragon rumbled. We need you. The bond between dragons and dragon lords is ancient magic that strengthens both. You belong with us, Harry Potter. For the first time in his young life, Harry felt wanted, truly wanted. The sensation was overwhelming. Yes, he said simply. I'll go with you. No. A new voice cut through the night. Albus Dumbledore had apparat into the street, wand raised. I cannot allow this. Phyretalon's massive head swung toward the wizard, nostrils flaring. The great Dumbledore, she rumbled. Your magic protected this child, yet you left him with these unworthy guardians. There are protections here that keep him safe, Dumbledore insisted, moving cautiously closer. Blood magic of the most powerful kind. Harry must remain safe, interrupted a sleek emerald dragon, tail lashing angrily. The boy is underfed and clothed in rags. We can smell his unhappiness from across continents. What protection is this? Harry moved closer to Phyretalon, instinctively seeking her warmth. I want to go with them, he said firmly. Harry, you don't understand, Dumbledore began gently. Your mother's sacrifice, we understand blood magic better than you could imagine, wizard, Phyretalon cut in. The boy has called to us as no human has done for 5 centuries. The magic has chosen. Around them, the night exploded with cracks of apparition as ministry officials arrived. Dragons roared in response, some taking to the air defensively. This area is now under control of the Ministry of Magic, announced a stern-faced witch in official robes. All dragons are ordered to depart British airspace immediately or face consequences under the Dragon Restriction Act of 1709. Phyretalon's laugh rumbled like distant thunder. Your laws mean nothing to us. The Dragon Lord has accepted our claim. The ancient magic is binding. Before anyone could react, the copper-colored dragon that had protected Harry earlier swooped down, gently grasping Harry in its claws. Harry felt no fear, only exhilaration as the dragon lifted him into the night sky. Stop them, someone shouted. Spells shot upward, but the dragons moved with surprising speed, forming a protective formation around the one carrying Harry. Phyretalon was the last to take flight, facing down Dumbledore. He will be safer with us than he ever was here, she said. When the time comes, Dragon Lord Potter will return to your world, but on his terms, not yours. With that, she spread her massive wings and launched into the sky, the downward force of her takeoff knocking several wizards off their feet. Dumbledore could only watch helplessly as the dragons disappeared into the clouds, taking the boy who lived with them. Harry had never felt so alive. Wind whipped through his hair as they soared above the clouds, the moon casting silver light across the dragon's scales. He rode now on Phyretalon's back, securely nestled between her shoulder blades. Where are we going? He called over the rushing wind. To our sanctuary in the mountains of Wales, Phyretalon replied. Hidden from human eyes for centuries by magic older than your ministry. There you will learn what it means to be a dragon lord. The copper dragon flew alongside them, performing playful aerial maneuvers that made Harry laugh. That's Ember's Kale, Phyretalon explained. Barely 50 years old, practically a hatchling. He will be your companion as you grow. Ember's Kale let out a happy rumble, performing a barrel roll that made Harry gasp in delight. They flew through the night, Harry drinking in the sensation of absolute freedom. Below, Muggle towns appeared as clusters of light, oblivious to the dragons passing overhead. When exhaustion finally caught up to him, Harry curled against Phyretalon's warm scales and fell into the most peaceful sleep of his young life. He awoke as dawn broke over rugged mountain peaks. The dragons were descending toward what looked like an ordinary mountainside, until they passed through what felt like a curtain of warm water, revealing a hidden valley beyond. Harry gasped at the sight. A vast caldera stretched below, filled with lush vegetation unlike anything in Britain. Steam rose from hot springs scattered throughout the valley, and crystal-clear lakes reflected the morning sun. Most impressive were the cave openings dotting the caldera walls, hundreds of them, some with dragons lounging on ledges outside. "Welcome to Draconis Vale," Phyretalon said as they spiraled down toward the center of the valley. "No human has seen this place in over 5 centuries." They landed in a clearing where dozens of dragons had gathered, scales of every color glistening in the sunlight. Harry slid from Phyretalon's back, suddenly aware of how small he was among these massive creatures. "Dragons of the Vale," Phyretalon announced, her voice carrying across the gathering. "I present Harry Potter, Dragon Lord." Harry stood straighter, somehow knowing this moment was important. The assembled dragons lowered their heads in what he instinctively understood was a sign of respect. An ancient dragon with scales like polished obsidian approached. "The claiming must be completed," it said in a voice that sounded like stones grinding together. "The old way." Phyretalon nodded. "Are you prepared, young one? The ritual will bind you to dragonkind forever." Harry looked around at the dragons, creatures he'd only seen in Dudley's storybooks, now real and magnificent before him. They wanted him. They respected him. Here, he wouldn't be a freak or a burden. "I'm ready," he said, voice steadier than he expected. The obsidian dragon, introduced as Stoneclaw, keeper of dragon lore, directed Harry to stand in the center of a circle of 7 dragons, each representing a different breed. Emberscale watched excitedly from just outside the circle. "Since the dawn of magic," Stoneclaw began, "rare humans have been born with the ability to speak our tongue and channel our magic. These dragon lords served as bridges between our kinds, before fear and greed drove humans to hunt us. The ritual we perform today has not been seen in 5 centuries. Harry stood still as Phyretalon approached with something clutched gently in her massive claws, a crystal the size of Harry's fist, glowing with inner fire. "The heart crystal contains the freely given flame breath of 7 dragons," she explained. "It will test your worthiness and, if you are truly called, forge the bond." Harry took the crystal with both hands. It was warm but didn't burn, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The moment he touched it, the strange green light that had surrounded him at Privet Drive returned, enveloping him. "Now," instructed Stoneclaw, "you must command the fire within. If you are truly a dragon lord, it will obey." Harry stared into the crystal, unsure what to do. Then, instinctively, he whispered, "Burn." The crystal flared blindingly bright. Fire erupted from within, engulfing Harry completely. The dragons watched impassively as the 4-year-old disappeared within a column of multicolored flame. Inside the fire, Harry felt no pain, only warmth and something like music flowing through him. Words in a language he somehow understood formed in his mind, and he spoke them aloud with perfect clarity. "By flame and scale, by claw and wing, I bind my magic to the ancient kind. In protection and respect, in wisdom and power, let the bond be forged anew." The flames surged upward before collapsing inward, absorbing into Harry's body. When the fire vanished, Harry stood unharmed, but changed. Tiny scales glittered at his temples and along his forearms, not obvious enough to make him look inhuman, but clear markers of the bond to those who knew what to look for. "It is done," Phyretalon announced, satisfaction evident in her voice. "The Dragon Lord is claimed." The assembled dragons roared their approval, the sound echoing off the mountains. Harry felt their joy as if it were his own, another sign of the new bond. Emberscale bounded forward, nudging Harry gently with his snout. "We're going to have amazing adventures," the young dragon said excitedly. Harry laughed, placing a hand on Emberscale's copper scales. "I've never had a friend before," he admitted. "Now you have hundreds," Emberscale replied. "And I'm the best one." While Harry was being welcomed into dragon society, the wizarding world had erupted into chaos. Emergency sessions of the Wisengamot convened as news spread that dragons, long absent from Britain, had returned en masse to abduct Harry Potter. Albus Dumbledore faced the assembled witches and wizards with uncharacteristic weariness. "The dragons claim Harry Potter is a dragon lord," he explained above the tumult. A human born with natural abilities to communicate with and command dragons. Preposterous, exclaimed Cornelius Fudge, the Minister for Magic. Dragon lords are myths from the medieval period. There hasn't been a confirmed case in 5 centuries, Dumbledore finished. Yet I witnessed the dragons' behavior myself. They responded to young Harry in ways consistent with the old accounts. The Muggles are in an uproar, reported Amelia Bones, head of magical law enforcement. We've had to dispatch every available obliviator to Surrey. The statute of secrecy has never faced a breach of this magnitude. Lucius Malfoy rose from his seat, silver-topped cane gleaming. Let us not forget that dragons are classified as XXXXX creatures, known wizard killers. If they truly have taken Potter, the boy may already be dead. I do not believe that is the case, Dumbledore countered. The Dragon Elder, Veretalon, she called herself, spoke of protecting Harry. If he is indeed a dragon lord, they would sooner die than harm him. Then we must retrieve him immediately. Fudge insisted. The boy who lived cannot be raised by dragons. It's unnatural. I fear any attempt to forcibly remove Harry would result in catastrophic loss of life, Dumbledore said gravely. Dragons are not merely dangerous creatures, they are intelligent, magical beings with powers we barely understand. The Welsh sanctuary has been hidden from wizards for centuries despite our best efforts to locate it. So we do nothing? Demanded an elderly witch. Leave our savior to be raised as, what, some sort of dragon child? Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. For now, I suggest caution. I will attempt to establish communication through channels ancient enough that the dragons might respect them. Harry must eventually return to the wizarding world, but antagonizing an entire dragon colony is not the way to ensure that happens. The debate raged for hours, but ultimately, with no way to locate the hidden dragon sanctuary and the terrifying prospect of provoking dragon wrath, the Ministry reluctantly agreed to Dumbledore's approach. As the meeting disbanded, Severus Snape approached Dumbledore privately. Dragon Lord or not, he is still Lily's son, he said in a low voice. What becomes of your grand plans for the boy now? Dumbledore sighed heavily. I fear, Severus, that the game has changed entirely. The prophecy remains, but dragons have their own magic, ancient and powerful in ways even I don't fully comprehend. If they've truly claimed Harry as their own. He left the thought unfinished, gazing out a window toward the distant mountains where, somewhere, a small boy with a lightning scar was beginning a life none of them could have imagined. Harry's first weeks in Draconis Vale passed in a whirlwind of discovery. He learned that the hidden valley existed in a magical pocket, larger inside than the mountain suggested from outside, with its own climate maintained by dragon magic. He was given a cave of his own, small by dragon standards but enormous to a 4-year-old boy. Emberscale, whose cave was nearby, helped him gather soft materials for a proper sleeping nest and taught him how to activate the heat stones that kept the cave warm at night. Dragons don't usually use human things, Emberscale explained as they arranged Harry's nest, but the elders agree you should keep some human ways. You're the bridge between worlds. Harry, who had never had a room of his own, much less a cave, ran his hands over the smooth walls in wonder. It's perfect, he declared. Learning Dragon Tongue came naturally to Harry after the claiming ritual, another sign of his Dragon Lord status. Within days, he could understand every rumble, growl, and hiss perfectly, though producing some of the deeper sounds remained difficult with his human vocal cords. Food presented an early challenge. Dragons primarily ate meat, consuming entire deer or sheep in one sitting. Veretalon assigned a group of younger dragons to hunt suitable food for their human charge, which they approached with enthusiasm if not expertise. Is this better? Asked a green dragon named Vinetalon, dropping a singed but intact rabbit before Harry. Her previous offerings had been either completely charred or barely dead. Much better, Harry assured her, having quickly learned to cook the meat himself using small fire pits the dragons helped him build. The biggest adjustment was bathing. Dragons found the concept amusing, they cleaned themselves with fire or sand, but created a small pool fed by hot springs where Harry could wash. He quickly grew to love swimming, an activity the Dursleys had never taught him. Each morning, Stoneclaw would summon Harry for lessons in dragon history and magic. The ancient dragon had once observed human children and understood the importance of structured learning, even if his methods were unlike any human school. Dragons and humans once lived together in harmony, Stoneclaw explained during one lesson, using a talon to draw symbols in the sand that magically transformed into moving images. Dragon lords were respected by both kinds, keeping peace and sharing wisdom. Harry watched, fascinated, as sand figures of humans and dragons worked together to build great structures. What happened, he asked when the images showed dragons and humans fighting. Fear, Stoneclaw rumbled sadly. Humans with magic, wizards, grew powerful and began to fear that dragon lords held too much influence. They created spells to control dragons without the lord's mediation. Wars erupted. Dragons were hunted. We retreated to sanctuaries like this one, hidden from human eyes. Will they try to take me away? Harry asked quietly. Stoneclaw's ancient eyes fixed on Harry. They may try. But you are claimed now, bound to us by magic older than their ministry. Even the wizard Dumbledore respects magic this ancient. Afternoons were spent with Ember's Kale, exploring the valley and learning dragon customs. The young dragon was only 50 years old, barely adolescent by dragon standards, and had boundless energy that matched Harry's perfectly. Dragons don't really play like humans, Ember's Kale explained as they climbed a rocky outcropping. We practice skills we'll need, flying, hunting, fighting. Can you teach me to fight? Harry asked eagerly. Ember's Kale snorted, a puff of smoke escaping his nostrils. You're too small yet, but yes, when you're older. Dragon lords of old were powerful warriors who fought alongside their dragon companions. One evening, about a month after Harry's arrival, Phyretalon summoned him to her cave, the largest in the Vale, situated at the highest point of the caldera. Harry climbed the winding path with Ember's Kale, now comfortable with heights that would terrify most children. Phyretalon was not alone. With her was a silvery blue dragon Harry hadn't met before, with unusual markings around its eyes that looked like spectacles. Harry Potter, Phyretalon greeted him. This is Mist Moon from the Chinese sanctuary. She brings news from the human wizard world. Harry approached cautiously. The Chinese dragon was smaller and more serpentine than the European dragons he'd grown accustomed to, with whiskers that twitched as she studied him. The wizards search for you still, Mist Moon said, her voice melodic compared to the rumbling tones of European dragons. Their ministry has sent envoys to every known dragon reservation demanding your return. They cannot find us here, Phyretalon assured Harry, seeing his worried expression. But Mist Moon brings another matter of importance. She is a dreamwalker, one who can see possible futures. Mist Moon lowered her head to look directly at Harry. I have seen your path, young lord. It is intertwined with both dragon and wizard worlds, no matter how we might wish to keep you only in ours. The dark wizard who marked you, her gaze flicked to Harry's lightning scar, is not truly gone. Harry touched his scar instinctively. The dragons had told him about Voldemort and how Harry had somehow survived his attack as a baby. You mean I'll have to fight him? Harry asked. All paths show confrontation, Mist Moon confirmed. But the manner of that meeting changes depending on your preparation. In some visions, you face him with only wizard magic and fail. In others, you bring dragon magic to the fight. Then I need to learn both, Harry said with determination surprising for a 4-year-old. Phyretalon made a sound of approval. Spoken like a true dragon lord. Yes, when the time comes, you must understand the wizard world as well as ours. But that day is not yet here. For now, you learn our ways. After Mist Moon departed, Harry sat at the mouth of Phyretalon's cave, watching stars appear over the valley. Ember's Kale curled protectively around him, warm scales warding off the evening chill. I'm glad the dragons found me, Harry said quietly. We're glad too, little lord, Emberscale rumbled. Rest now. Tomorrow we start teaching you to ride properly. Harry grinned at the prospect, leaning back against his dragon friend. For the first time in his life, he felt he belonged somewhere, even if that somewhere was far removed from the world he'd been born into. In the distance, beyond the protective magic of the veil, Albus Dumbledore stood on a Welsh mountainside, scanning the peaks with magical instruments. Every location spell had failed, every tracking charm dissolved against ancient protections. "Where are you, Harry?" he whispered to the knight. Within the hidden valley, the boy in question slept peacefully, surrounded by creatures most wizards feared, but who had given him what the wizarding world could not, a true home. Chapter 2, The Dragon's Heir. Harry. Wake up. Ferettalon's calling a council meeting and we're allowed to attend. Harry Potter, now 7 years old, bolted upright in his nest of furs and fabrics. Emberscale's excited voice echoed through his cave, followed by the young dragon poking his copper-scaled head through the entrance. In the 3 years since Harry had joined the dragons, Emberscale had nearly doubled in size, his wingspan now stretching almost 40 feet. Seriously? A full council? Harry scrambled out of his nest, reaching for the leather vest he'd crafted himself from deer hide. His bare feet barely felt the cool stone floor anymore, years of running across rocky terrain had toughened them considerably. Hurry up. Emberscale's tail twitched impatiently. Stoneclaw says it's about you. Harry grabbed a strip of dried meat from his food stores and ducked through the cave opening. The morning sun bathed Draconis Vale in golden light, illuminating hundreds of dragons going about their daily business. Some soared through the air currents rising from the valley floor, while others lounged near the hot springs or hunted in the forests that covered the lower slopes. Harry leapt onto Emberscale's back with practiced ease, settling between the two largest spinal ridges. No saddle or harness needed, not for a dragon lord. His balance and connection to his dragon companion made such things unnecessary. Let's fly. Harry called, excitement bubbling through him. Emberscale launched from the ledge outside Harry's cave, massive wings catching the morning thermals. Harry's stomach swooped as they plummeted briefly before soaring upward. No matter how many times they flew together, the thrill never diminished. So what's this meeting about? Harry asked, leaning close to Emberscale's ear frill so he could be heard over the rushing wind. Dunno exactly, Emberscale replied, banking around a towering rock spire. But Mist Moon is back from China, and there are representatives from the Romanian and Peruvian colonies too. Harry frowned. Dragons rarely gathered from different sanctuaries unless something important was happening. Did Stoneclaw seem worried? Not worried. Just serious. Emberscale performed a quick barrel roll that made Harry whoop with delight. Race you to the hot springs after the meeting? You're on. Harry grinned, then tightened his grip as they approached the council crest, an enormous flat plateau near the top of the caldera where dragons gathered for important discussions. At least 30 adult dragons had already assembled when they landed, forming a rough circle around a central fire pit. Harry recognized most of the Vale residents but noticed several unfamiliar dragons as well, including a sleek Peruvian viper tooth whose scales glittered like burnished copper in the sunlight. Ferettalon nodded acknowledgement as Harry and Emberscale found their place in the circle. In the 3 years since she'd brought Harry to the sanctuary, the great golden dragon had become something of a mother figure to him, stern but protective, demanding yet fair. The Council of Scales is gathered, Stoneclaw announced, his obsidian scales gleaming as he took position beside the fire pit. We welcome our kin from distant sanctuaries who have journeyed far to participate in this discussion. Mist Moon, the Chinese dreamwalker dragon, inclined her head gracefully. The matter concerns all dragonkind. The first dragon lord in 5 centuries deserves our collective wisdom. All eyes turned to Harry, who straightened his spine and met their gazes steadily. He'd learned early that dragons respected confidence and directness. 3 winters have passed since the claiming, Stoneclaw continued. Young Lord Potter's connection to dragon magic grows stronger daily. The time has come to discuss his future path. A massive ridgeback dragon with rust-colored scales spoke up. The wizard world still searches for him. Their ministry sends delegations to our Romanian sanctuary every few months, offering treaties and concessions in exchange for information. Let them search, growled a battle-scarred Norwegian ridgeback. The wizards had their chance to protect the boy and failed. He belongs with us now. Not all agree, countered Mist Moon. Some believe a dragon lord must understand both worlds to fulfill their purpose. Throughout history, the greatest lords served as bridges between dragons and humans. Harry listened intently, recognizing the weight of this discussion. His education thus far had focused entirely on dragon culture, language, and magic. Beyond what he remembered from his brief time with the Dursleys, he knew little of human society, magical or otherwise. Ferretalon's voice cut through the growing debate. Perhaps we should hear from Harry himself. He is young but not voiceless. The gathered dragons fell silent, all attention focusing on the small human boy sitting cross-legged beside Emberscale. Harry took a deep breath. I love living here with all of you, he began, speaking in dragon tongue that now felt as natural as breathing. Everything I know about family and home I've learned in the Vale. But... He paused, collecting his thoughts. But I also know that someday I'll have to face the dark wizard who gave me this. He touched his lightning scar. Mist Moon has seen it. And to defeat him, I might need to understand wizard magic too. Rumbles of approval and disagreement rippled through the assembly. The boy shows wisdom beyond his years, commented the Peruvian dragon. In our mountains, we have legends of dragon lords who commanded both magics, their power was unmatched. It's not just about power, Harry added. It's about belonging. I'm a dragon lord, but I'm also human. Shouldn't I understand both sides of myself? Stoneclaw nodded thoughtfully. There is truth in your words, young one. Yet there are dangers in the wizard world that go beyond dark lords. Their ministry would seek to control you, to study the bond we share. Then we teach him to protect himself, Ferretalon declared. Dragon lords of old faced similar challenges. We will prepare him for both worlds, but not yet. The boy needs more time to master dragon magic before confronting human magic. The council debate continued for hours, weighing traditions, prophecies, and practicalities. Harry remained attentive despite his growing hunger, knowing that his future hung in the balance. Finally, a consensus emerged. Harry would continue his dragon education for now, with eventual controlled exposure to human magical knowledge when the elders deemed him ready. As the council dispersed, Harry caught snippets of conversation from the foreign dragons. Growing faster than expected, element affinity already manifesting, stronger bond than any lord in our records, Emberscale nudged Harry's shoulder. See? Told you it was about you. Ready for that race to the hot springs? Harry grinned, pushing aside the weight of responsibility that had settled on his young shoulders. Last one there has to help Vinetolin sort her gem collection. Miles away, in his office at Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore stared wearily at yet another failed tracking charm. For 3 years, he had exhausted every magical means to locate Harry Potter, with nothing to show for his efforts. A soft knock at the door preceded Minerva McGonagall's entrance. Any progress, Albus? She asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. None, Dumbledore sighed, removing his half-moon spectacles to rub the bridge of his nose. It's as if Harry Potter has vanished from the magical world entirely. Even the Book of Admission no longer updates his location, it simply lists him as claimed by dragons. McGonagall's lips pressed into a thin line. The ministry delegation to the Hungarian reserve returned empty-handed again. The dragons there wouldn't even acknowledge their presence. Dragons have memories longer than our histories, Dumbledore mused. Their distrust of wizard kind is centuries deep and well-earned. Fudge is pushing to have Harry declared legally dead, McGonagall reported grimly. Says it would provide closure for the wizarding community and honor the Potter legacy appropriately. Dumbledore's blue eyes hardened. Cornelius has always placed political expediency above truth. Harry Potter lives, of that I am certain. The protective spells tied to his life force remain active. But living where? And as what? McGonagall asked softly. Dragons aren't known for their gentle child-rearing practices, Albus. If Harry truly is this Dragon Lord they claim, what sort of boy will emerge from their influence? That, Dumbledore admitted, is precisely what keeps me awake at night. Back in Draconis Vale, Harry and Emberscale raced across the valley floor, darting between massive dragon bodies lounging near the central hot springs. Steam rose in great clouds, creating a perpetual mist that danced with rainbow colors where sunlight struck it. I win! Harry shouted, diving into one of the smaller pools that remained cool enough for human comfort. The warm water embraced him, soothing muscles tired from a morning of flying and sitting through the council meeting. Emberscale snorted indignantly. You cheated. You slid under Cloudrazor's wing. I used the terrain to my advantage, Harry corrected with a grin, splashing water at his dragon friend. That's what you taught me last week, remember? Their playful argument was interrupted by the arrival of Stoneclaw, who rarely visited the hot springs due to his advanced age. Young lord, the ancient dragon rumbled. Your presence is requested at the Claiming Stone. Harry exchanged a curious glance with Emberscale before climbing out of the pool. The Claiming Stone, where Harry had undergone the ritual that bound him to dragonkind, was only used for ceremonies and special magical workings. What's happening? Harry asked, hastily pulling on his leather vest and pants. It is time to begin the next phase of your training, Stoneclaw explained, leading them along a worn path toward the center of the Vale. The council has agreed that your elemental affinities must be identified and nurtured. Harry's heartbeat quickened with excitement. He'd learned from Stoneclaw's lessons that dragon lords of old could channel elemental magic related to their bonded dragons, fire, air, earth, or water. At the Claiming Stone, a massive flat rock covered in ancient dragon runes, Feretalon waited alongside a dragon Harry hadn't met before. This newcomer had unusual pearlescent scales that seemed to change color with each movement, and eyes that swirled with internal light. Harry, this is Shimmerscale, Feretalon introduced. She is an element singer from the Himalayan sanctuary, skilled in identifying magical affinities. Harry bowed respectfully. I'm honored to meet you. Shimmerscale studied him with those strange, luminous eyes. So young, she commented, voice like wind through crystal chimes. Yet already I see the magic taking root. Come closer, Dragon Lord. Harry approached cautiously. Shimmerscale circled him slowly, occasionally releasing small puffs of multicolored smoke that drifted around Harry before dissipating. Interesting, she murmured. Very interesting indeed. What do you see? Feretalon asked. Fire, certainly, that's to be expected with his primary bond. Shimmerscale nodded toward Emberscale, whose copper scales marked him as a fire-dominant dragon. But there's more. Air flows through him easily, and earth responds to his call. Water is distant, but not closed. Stoneclaw's eyes widened slightly. 3 primary affinities. That's unprecedented. Not entirely, Shimmerscale corrected. The histories speak of one lord, Carrioth the Stormcaller, who mastered 3 elements. But none in recorded memory have shown aptitude for all 4. Harry looked between the dragons uncertainly. Is that good? Feretalon made a rumbling noise that Harry recognized as her version of laughter. It is neither good nor bad, young one, simply unusual. It means your training will be more complex than we anticipated. And potentially more dangerous, added Stoneclaw with a concerned glance at Feretalon. Shimmerscale circled Harry once more, then stopped directly before him. I must test the strength of your affinities. This won't hurt, but it may feel strange. Before Harry could respond, Shimmerscale inhaled deeply and exhaled a cloud of shimmering mist that enveloped him completely. Within the mist, Harry felt something stir, not around him but inside him, as if parts of himself previously dormant were awakening. Heat bloomed in his chest, comfortable, familiar. The sensation of fire had been with him since the claiming ritual, nurtured through his connection with Emberscale. But now new sensations joined it, a lightness in his limbs that made him feel he might float away, and a steady, grounding pull from below, connecting him to the earth beneath his feet. When the mist cleared, Harry was hovering several inches above the claiming stone, small flames dancing across his fingertips, while pebbles from the ground spiraled slowly around his legs. "Whoa!" he gasped, and immediately crashed back to the stone as his concentration broke. The flames extinguished and the pebbles clattered down. "Magnificent," breathed Shimmerscale. "The affinities are not merely present, they're active. Can all dragon lords do this?" Harry asked, staring at his hands in wonder. "With training, dragon lords can channel dragon magic through their human bodies," Stoneclaw explained. "But the process typically takes years of dedicated practice. You appear to have a natural aptitude that accelerates the connection." "It's because he was claimed so young," Ferretalon theorized. "His magic was still forming, malleable enough to intertwine deeply with dragon magic." Harry looked to Emberscale, who was watching with undisguised awe. "Did you know I could do this?" Emberscale shook his massive head. "I felt our connection growing stronger, but this is wizard fire and dragon fire becoming something new." "Your training begins tomorrow," Ferretalon declared. "Shimmerscale will oversee your elemental work, while I continue your flight training. Stoneclaw will deepen your knowledge of dragon history and magic theory." Harry nodded eagerly, already imagining the possibilities. "What about Emberscale? Will he train with me?" "Your bond with Emberscale is the foundation of your power," Shimmerscale explained. "As you grow stronger, so will he. The magic flows both ways, a true partnership." That night, too excited to sleep, Harry sat at the mouth of his cave watching the stars with Emberscale curled protectively around him. The dragon's body heat kept the mountain chill at bay as they talked about the day's revelations. "Do you think I'll really be able to control fire like you?" Harry asked, running a hand along Emberscale's warm scales. "And air and earth," Emberscale reminded him. "You'll probably be throwing fireballs and flying without wings before I master my flame precision." Harry laughed. "We'll practice together. Race you to that peak tomorrow." "You're on, little lord." As Harry finally drifted to sleep, cradled against his dragon friend, neither noticed the brief moment when his scar flickered with an eerie green light, the same color as the killing curse that had left it there years before. In a forest in Albania, something less than human stirred in response to a distant magical pulse. A parasitic consciousness, barely clinging to existence, sensed an unfamiliar power, wild and ancient, briefly connected to the piece of soul it had inadvertently left behind. If the fragmented being once known as Lord Voldemort could have smiled, it would have. After years of nothing, finally a trace of the boy who had destroyed him. The magic was strange, not the wizard magic he knew, but the connection was unmistakable. The wraith abandoned its current host, a small forest creature already dying from its possession, and began moving west. Toward Britain. Toward the source of that tantalizing magical pulse. Harry's elemental training began at dawn the next day. Shimmerscale led him to a secluded part of the Vale, a small canyon with a stream running through it, rocky walls on either side, and open sky above. "All four elements in one place," she explained. "Perfect for testing your affinities." Harry stood barefoot in the stream, feeling the cool water rush past his ankles while Emberscale watched from a nearby ledge. Other young dragons had gathered to observe as well, curious about this new development in Harry's abilities. "Fire comes most naturally to you through your bond with Emberscale," Shimmerscale began. "Show me what you can already do instinctively." Harry closed his eyes, focusing on the warm core of energy he always felt inside him, the connection to Emberscale and, through him, to fire itself. He extended his hand, imagining heat flowing down his arm and out through his fingers. A small flame appeared above his palm, flickering, unsteady, but definitely real. Good, Shimmer Scale approved. Now try to shape it. Harry concentrated harder, imagining the flame stretching, forming a specific shape. The fire wobbled, then slowly elongated into something resembling a tiny dragon. Impressive control for a first attempt, Shimmer Scale noted. Now, extinguish it with your will alone. Harry closed his fist, and the flame winked out instantly. Fire responds to your emotions, Shimmer Scale cautioned. Anger will make it flare beyond your control. Fear will make it falter when you need it most. Respect the element, and it will serve you faithfully. For the next hour, Harry practiced creating, shaping, and extinguishing flames of various sizes. By the end, he could maintain a fireball the size of his head for several minutes without strain. Now for air, Shimmer Scale directed, leading him out of the stream onto a flat rock. Air is about freedom, movement, and thought. Where fire is passion, air is intellect. This proved more challenging. Harry could feel the air around him, but making it respond to his will took intense concentration. After numerous failed attempts, he managed to create a small swirl of wind that ruffled his increasingly shaggy hair. Don't force it, Shimmer Scale advised. Air cannot be commanded like fire, it must be persuaded. By midday, Harry could generate enough wind to scatter leaves and create small dust devils. The effort left him exhausted but exhilarated. Earth will be our final element today, Shimmer Scale decided, noting Harry's fatigue. Water can wait until you've mastered the others. Earth magic felt entirely different, heavy, solid, resistant to change. Harry placed both hands on the ground, trying to feel the connection Shimmer Scale described. For long minutes, nothing happened. Earth demands patience, Shimmer Scale reminded him. It has existed for eons and will continue long after we're gone. You cannot rush it. Harry frowned in concentration, pushing away his frustration. Instead of trying to force his will upon the earth, he tried to listen to it instead, to feel its ancient, steady presence beneath him. Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly. A small column of stone rose slowly beneath his hands, lifting them about 6 inches before stopping. Well done! Shimmer Scale exclaimed. Most dragon lords require months to achieve even that much control over Earth. Harry grinned tiredly, feeling the drain of so much magical exertion. The stone column crumbled back to dust as his concentration wavered. That's enough for today, Shimmer Scale declared. Your magical core needs time to recover and adapt. Ember Scale bounded down from his observation perch, practically vibrating with excitement. That was amazing. You made fire dragons and whirlwinds and moved stones. Wait until Firetalon sees. Harry smiled weakly, suddenly feeling lightheaded. I think I need to eat something. A common side effect of elemental work, Shimmer Scale nodded. Your body requires fuel to replace the energy expended. Ember Scale, take him to the feeding grounds. The copper dragon lowered himself to allow Harry to climb onto his back, then took off with a powerful downbeat of his wings. As they soared toward the central part of the vale where dragons brought their kills to eat, Ember Scale couldn't contain his enthusiasm. Just imagine what you'll be able to do with more practice. You could create firestorms, or fly without me. He paused, suddenly concerned. Not that you'd want to fly without me. Right? Harry patted the dragon's neck reassuringly. Never. Flying with you is the best feeling in the world. Ember Scale rumbled happily as they landed near the feeding grounds, an open area where several deer carcasses lay ready for consumption. Younger dragons were already tearing into the meat, while older ones lounged nearby, having eaten earlier. Harry slid from Ember Scale's back and approached a smaller carcass that Firetalon had thoughtfully set aside for him. Years of living with dragons had eliminated any squeamishness about butchering his own meals. Using a stone knife he'd crafted himself, Harry cut strips of venison and skewered them on a stick to roast over one of the perpetual fire pits. As he waited for his meat to cook, Harry noticed a group of dragons watching him from across the clearing. Unlike the friendly or curious looks he usually received, these gazes seemed skeptical. "Who are they?" Harry asked Emberscale quietly, nodding toward the group. Emberscale followed his gaze and growled softly. "Stoneclaw's grandson Obsidiantooth and his clutchmates. They've never fully accepted a human in the Vale. Don't worry about them." But Harry couldn't ignore the hostile stares as he ate his roasted venison. When he finished, he stood and walked directly toward the group, ignoring Emberscale's hissed warning to leave it alone. "You have something to say to me?" Harry asked bluntly, standing before dragons each 10 times his size. Obsidiantooth, a sleek black dragon with unusual gray markings, lowered his massive head to Harry's level. "We were discussing your performance today, human." "My name is Harry," he corrected firmly, "or young lord if you prefer formality. And I didn't see you at my training session." "Word travels quickly in the Vale," replied a slate-gray female dragon. "They say you show unusual aptitude for elemental magic." Harry crossed his arms. "And this bothers you because—" Obsidiantooth snorted, a puff of smoke curling from his nostrils. "Because history tells us what happens when humans gain dragon power. They use it against us. The last great wizard war began when a dragon lord turned traitor, using our magic to help wizards hunt our kind." Harry felt a flare of anger, and with it, heat building in his fingertips. He took a deep breath, remembering Shimmerscale's warning about emotions affecting fire magic. "I'm not a traitor," he said evenly. "I was claimed by dragons before I even knew the wizarding world existed. This is my home. You are my family. Blood will tell," Obsidiantooth rumbled ominously. "When the wizard world calls, we'll see where your true loyalties lie, human child." Before Harry could respond, Emberscale stepped between them, his larger size forcing Obsidiantooth to back up slightly. "Enough." The council recognized him as Dragon Lord. "Your doubt dishonors the ancient magic." For a tense moment, it seemed the confrontation might escalate. Then a shadow passed overhead as Phyretalon circled down to land beside them, her massive form dwarfing even the largest younger dragons. "Is there a problem?" she asked, golden eyes surveying the scene. Obsidiantooth lowered his head respectfully. "No problem, Elder. We were merely welcoming the young lord after his training session." Phyretalon's gaze made it clear she didn't believe him, but she simply nodded. "Harry, it's time for your flight lesson. Emberscale, you'll join us today, we're practicing high-altitude gliding techniques." Grateful for the interruption, Harry climbed onto Emberscale's back. As they took off, following Phyretalon toward the highest peaks surrounding the Vale, he glanced back to see Obsidiantooth and his companions still watching. "Don't let them bother you," Emberscale advised as they caught an updraft. "Every clutch has a few eggheads who resist change." Harry nodded, but the confrontation had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. For the first time since arriving at the Vale, he felt like an outsider, reminded that no matter how much he belonged with the dragons, he was still fundamentally different. The feeling faded as they reached the highest peaks and began Phyretalon's demanding lessons on riding air currents that swirled around the mountain summits. For the next few hours, Harry focused entirely on maintaining his balance as Emberscale performed complex aerial maneuvers, the two of them learning to function as a single unit. By the time they returned to the Vale as dusk approached, Harry was exhausted but content. The day's elemental breakthroughs and flight practice had pushed him to new limits, and despite the confrontation with Obsidiantooth, he felt a deep sense of belonging as he watched the dragons settling in for the evening around the Vale. That night, however, Harry's dreams were troubled. He found himself walking through a dark forest, following something he couldn't quite see. A voice called to him, high, cold, and somehow familiar, speaking words he couldn't understand. He woke with a start to find his scar burning fiercely, a sensation he'd never experienced before. Emberscale, who often slept curled around the entrance to Harry's cave for protection, raised his head alertly. "What's wrong?" "Your scent changed, fear and something else." Harry pressed his palm against his scar, wincing as the pain slowly subsided. Bad dream, he mumbled, not wanting to worry his friend. Go back to sleep. But sleep eluded Harry for the rest of the night as he pondered the strange dream and what it might mean. The following weeks established a new routine. Mornings were dedicated to elemental training with Shimmer Scale, afternoons to flight practice with Phyretalon, and evenings to history and theory lessons with Stoneclaw. Harry's progress with elemental magic was remarkable. By the end of the first month, he could create and control fire with ease, generate wind strong enough to lift small objects, and move earth in increasingly complex patterns. Water remained challenging, responding sluggishly to his attempts to influence it. Water and fire are opposing elements, Shimmer Scale explained. With your primary bond to a fire dragon, water naturally resists your will. In time, with patience, it too will acknowledge you. As his magical abilities grew, so did Harry's confidence. The hostile glances from Obsidian Tootha's group bothered him less as other dragons increasingly sought his company, impressed by his rapid mastery of dragon magic. Young dragons especially seemed to view him as something of a celebrity, following him around the Vale and pestering him to demonstrate fire-shaping techniques. One morning, about 2 months into his training, Stoneclaw summoned Harry to his cave with unusual urgency. The ancient dragon rarely left his dwelling these days, preferring to have others come to him for lessons and council meetings. What's wrong? Harry asked as he entered the dimly lit cave. Stoneclaw's obsidian scales absorbed much of the available light, making him seem like a living shadow in the recesses of the cavern. A situation has developed that requires your attention, Stoneclaw replied gravely. Dream Fury has awakened. Harry frowned, searching his memory of dragon lore. Dream Fury, the ancient Norwegian who's been in rage sleep for decades? Stoneclaw nodded solemnly. 3 centuries, to be precise. He entered rage sleep after wizards killed his mate and offspring during the Great Purge. We feared he would never awaken, his mind lost to fury and grief. But he has awakened, Harry guessed. And he's dangerous. Extremely. Dream Fury was ancient even before his sleep began, one of the oldest dragons still living. His power is immense, and his hatred of humans absolute. He does not know of your presence in the Vale, nor of your status as Dragon Lord. Harry understood the problem immediately. And if he finds out, he might attack me, or worse, leave the sanctuary and attack human settlements. Precisely. Stoneclaw shifted his massive body, scales scraping against stone. In his prime, Dream Fury could level entire villages with his flame. Age and sleep have weakened him, but he remains tremendously dangerous. What can I do? Harry asked. A dragon lord of old might have been able to calm him, to reach through the rage to the rational mind beneath. But such techniques have been lost for centuries. Still, your connection to our kind is strong. If anyone can prevent disaster, it might be you. The responsibility felt overwhelming to Harry's 7-year-old mind, but he straightened his shoulders and nodded firmly. I'll try. Where is he now? In the northern caves, the most isolated section of the Vale. Phyretalon and the other elders have contained him there for now, but his rage grows by the hour. We must act quickly. Harry hurried to find Emberscale, who was alarmed by the plan but refused to let Harry face the challenge alone. Together they flew to the northern end of the Vale, a craggy, windswept area where few dragons chose to dwell. Even before landing, Harry could hear the furious roars echoing from a massive cave mouth partially blocked by boulders. Phyretalon and 6 other elder dragons were positioned around the entrance, maintaining a magical barrier visible as a shimmering heat haze. Beyond it, Harry caught glimpses of midnight blue scales and glowing red eyes. Harry, Phyretalon acknowledged as they landed. Stoneclaw sent word you were coming. Are you certain you wish to attempt this? There is great risk. I have to try, Harry replied, sliding from Emberscale's back. If Dream Fury breaks free in his current state, many could be hurt, dragon and human alike. Phyretalon's golden eyes studied him intently. Your courage honors the bond we share. But understand, We cannot guarantee your safety once you cross the barrier. Dreamfury's flame can melt stone, and his mind may be too far gone to recognize you as Dragon Lord. Harry swallowed hard but nodded. I understand. Ember's Kale should stay outside, no sense risking both of us. Not happening, Ember's Kale growled. Where you go, I go. Your bond may actually help, suggested one of the elder dragons. Dreamfury lost his bonded ones, seeing a healthy bond might reach something in his ancient memory. After a brief strategy discussion, the plan was set. The elders would temporarily lower the barrier enough for Harry and Ember's Kale to enter, then restore it immediately. If things went catastrophically wrong, Harry would signal with a specific fire pattern, and the elders would break through to extract them, though all acknowledged such an intervention risked further enraging Dreamfury. Heart pounding, Harry mounted Ember's Kale again. Ready, he whispered. No, Ember's Kale admitted. But let's do it anyway. Ferretalon gave the signal, and a section of the shimmering barrier melted away. Ember's Kale darted through the opening, which sealed behind them instantly. The cave beyond was enormous, large enough to accommodate several full-grown dragons with room to spare. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like stone teeth, many broken where something massive had crashed against them. At the far end, partially obscured by shadows, lay Dreamfury. Harry's breath caught in his throat. Dreamfury was unlike any dragon he'd seen before, ancient beyond reckoning, with midnight blue scales faded to a stormy gray in places. His wings were tattered along the edges, and one horn had broken off at some point in the distant past. But most striking were his eyes, blood-red and filled with an ageless rage. Those eyes fixed on Harry and Ember's Kale as they cautiously advanced into the cave. A low growl rumbled through the chamber, shaking loose stones from the ceiling. Human, Dreamfury snarled in dragon tongue so archaic that Harry struggled to understand it. You bring human filth into my presence, younglings. Ember's Kale tensed beneath Harry but held his ground. He is Dragon Lord, Ancient One. Claimed and recognized by the Council. Dreamfury's laugh was like an avalanche. Dragon Lord? A human child? The world has gone mad while I slept. He rose to his full height, easily twice the size of Ferretalon, and spread tattered wings. I remember the last Dragon Lord, Voriax the Deceiver. He led hundreds of my kin to slaughter. Harry slid from Ember's Kale's back and stepped forward, hands empty and open in the dragon gesture of peaceful intent. I'm not Voriax, he said clearly. I'm Harry Potter. The dragons claimed me when I was 4 years old. This veil is the only home I remember. Pretty words from a pretty serpent, Dreamfury growled, stalking closer. Heat shimmer distorted the air around his massive jaws. Humans destroyed everything I loved. My mate. My offspring. Our ancient territories. And now I awaken to find dragons playing nursemaid to a human whelp. Harry stood his ground despite the fear coursing through him. Your grief is honored, he said formally, using the traditional dragon phrase for acknowledging another's loss. What was taken can never be restored. But revenge will not ease your pain. Dreamfury's tail lashed violently, smashing a boulder to rubble. What does a human child know of loss? Of centuries of grief? Your kind lives and dies in an eye blink, meaningful as insects. Instead of responding with words, Harry closed his eyes and reached for the elemental magic he'd been practicing. Fire came first, easiest and most natural. A small flame appeared in his palm, quickly growing and shaping itself into the form of a dragon in flight. Dreamfury paused, red eyes narrowing at the display. Next, Harry called to the air, creating a swirling breeze that carried the fire dragon upward in a spiral pattern. Finally, he reached for earth, the most difficult element for him, and raised a small column of stone from the cave floor that the fire dragon perched upon. I am bound to dragonkind, Harry said quietly, opening his eyes to meet Dreamfury's gaze. Their magic flows through me as mine flows through them. I cannot change what humans did to you, but I can show you that not all bonds between our kinds lead to betrayal." For a long moment, Dream Fury remained motionless, studying the magical display. Then, with surprising gentleness, he exhaled a small stream of blue flame that merged with Harry's fire dragon, transforming it into something more complex and beautiful. "Curious," the ancient dragon rumbled. "The magic responds to you as it would to one of our own." His rage hadn't disappeared, but something else now tempered it, a reluctant curiosity. The claiming ritual was performed properly, Emberscale offered, cautiously moving to Harry's side. "I've been his companion since the beginning. Our magic grows stronger together." Dream Fury settled back onto his haunches, red eyes still fixed on Harry. "Show me this bond you claim. Open your mind to me, human child." Harry glanced uncertainly at Emberscale, who nodded encouragement. "Mind speech is rare but not unknown. It's a great honor for one so ancient to request it." Taking a deep breath, Harry stepped forward until he stood directly before Dreamfury's massive head. The ancient dragon lowered his snout until it nearly touched Harry's forehead. "Be still," Dreamfury commanded. "This will not harm you if you resist the urge to fight it." Harry felt a presence brushing against his mind, alien yet somehow familiar, like the dragon magic he channeled but far more direct and personal. Instinctively, he relaxed and allowed the connection to form. Images flowed between them, Dreamfury's memories of ancient times when dragons ruled the skies freely, the devastating wizard attacks that had driven them into hiding, the terrible loss of his family. In return, Harry's memories flowed outward, the cupboard under the stairs, the moment the dragons arrived at Privet Drive, his first flight with Emberscale, the claiming ritual, and every moment since when he'd felt truly at home among the dragons. When the connection broke, Harry stumbled backward, dizzy from the intensity of the exchange. Emberscale steadied him with a gentle nudge. Dreamfury's red eyes had dimmed to a deep amber, still fierce, but no longer consumed by blind rage. "You have known pain at human hands," he acknowledged. "Yet you harbor no hatred for your own kind." "Curious." "The Dursleys weren't kind," Harry admitted, "but they're not all humans. Just as Voriax wasn't all dragon lords." The ancient dragon settled more comfortably on the cave floor. "Your wisdom exceeds your years, young one. Perhaps there is something to this claiming after all." He turned his massive head toward Emberscale. "And you, youngster. You protect him well. Your bond is strong, stronger than many I witnessed in the old days." Emberscale preened slightly at the praise from such an ancient dragon. "Thank you, ancient one. I will not rampage through your sanctuary," Dreamfury declared after a thoughtful silence. "But neither will I mingle freely with the others yet. I need time to adjust to this new world, so changed from the one I knew." Harry nodded understanding. "Would you accept visitors? There's so much I could learn from someone who remembers the original Dragon Lords." Dreamfury's mouth curved in what might have been a dragon smile. "Bold, aren't you? Yes, you may visit, you and your bonded one. Perhaps teaching will give purpose to my remaining years." When Harry and Emberscale emerged from the cave some time later, the gathered elder dragons were astonished to see Dreamfury calmly watching from the entrance, the murderous rage gone from his eyes. "How did you manage this?" Ferretalon asked as they flew back toward the central vale. Harry shrugged, still processing the intense mind-sharing experience. "I just showed him the truth, about me, about my connection to dragonkind. He needed to see that not all human-dragon bonds end in betrayal." What Harry didn't mention was something he'd glimpsed in Dreamfury's ancient memories, images of dragon lords channeling magic in ways far beyond what Shimmerscale was teaching him. Ways that blurred the line between human and dragon entirely. That night, as word spread through the Vale about Harry's success with Dreamfury, even Obsidian Tootha's group regarded him with new respect. Calming a dragon in rage sleep was a feat recorded in legend but rarely witnessed. Harry should have felt triumphant. Instead, as he lay in his nest preparing for sleep, an uneasy feeling plagued him. The mind sharing with Dreamfury had stirred something deep within, not just his own magic, but something else. Something that had been dormant in his lightning scar. When he finally drifted off, his dreams were more vivid than ever, the same dark forest, the same searching presence, but now with a clearer purpose. It was looking for him specifically, drawn by the surge of ancient magic he'd experienced during the connection with Dream Fury. Harry woke with his scar burning fiercely, a silent scream on his lips. This time, he didn't try to hide his distress from Emberscale. "Something's wrong," he admitted, pressing his palm against the lightning bolt mark. "My scar, it's never hurt before today." Emberscale's copper scales gleamed in the moonlight filtering into Harry's cave. "We should tell Feredalon. Dragon magic sometimes affects old wounds in strange ways." "No," Harry decided after a moment's thought. "Not yet. First, I want to speak with Dream Fury again. He might understand better, he's seen dark magic from the Wizard Wars." What Harry didn't say was that the presence in his dreams felt somehow connected to his past, to the dark wizard who had given him the scar in the first place. Some instinct told him this wasn't something the dragon elders could help with. This was about his human heritage, the part of himself he'd largely ignored during his years in the Vale. "First thing tomorrow," he promised Emberscale, who looked unconvinced but didn't argue. "We'll visit Dream Fury and ask him what it means." As Harry settled back into his nest, a disturbing thought occurred to him: what if the wizarding world he'd left behind wasn't as finished with Harry Potter as he was with it? Miles away in London, Cornelius Fudge signed the official declaration with a flourish. "There," he said, handing the parchment to Percy Weasley, his new junior assistant. "File that with the Department of Records immediately." "Yes, Minister," Percy replied, glancing at the document's title, Declaration of Presumed Death, Harry James Potter. Albus Dumbledore, who had been summoned to witness the signing, made no effort to hide his disapproval. "I maintain my objection to this declaration, Minister. Harry Potter lives." "Be that as it may," Fudge replied irritably, "it has been 3 years without a single credible sighting. The public needs closure, Dumbledore. The boy who lived is now the boy who was lost. A National Day of Remembrance will be announced next week." As Dumbledore left the ministry, his thoughts turned to the protective spell still active around Privet Drive, weakened but intact, suggesting that wherever Harry was, he remained alive. But for how long? And in what condition? The dragon's claim of him as a Dragon Lord suggested a magical bonding that might have consequences none of them could predict. "Find your way back, Harry," Dumbledore murmured to the night sky. "The wizarding world needs you more than you know." In Draconis Vale, the boy in question slept fitfully, his dreams invaded by a presence growing stronger with each passing night, a presence that had once tried to kill him, and might soon have the strength to try again. Chapter 3, Worlds Collide. Harry Potter stood at the edge of a cliff, arms outstretched, feeling the morning updraft against his face. At 11 years old, he'd grown tall and lean, his body hardened by years of climbing mountains and riding dragons. The small lightning bolt scar on his forehead was now joined by faint scale patterns at his temples and forearms, visible markers of his deep bond with dragonkind. "You're showing off," Emberscale called from below, his massive copper form circling lazily in the valley. Harry grinned. "Maybe a little." With a casual gesture, he summoned the air currents around him, letting them lift him gently off the ground until he hovered about 3 feet above the cliff edge. His control had improved dramatically over the years, what once required intense concentration now came as naturally as breathing. From this height, he could see much of Draconis Vale stretched before him, the hidden dragon sanctuary that had been his home for 7 years. Dragons of every color soared through the sky or lounged near the hot springs, while younger ones practiced hunting in the forests below. Harry released his hold on the air, dropping back to the cliff with practiced ease. Today was a special day, the summer solstice, when the Dragon Council would formally recognize his completion of elemental training. After years of study with Shimmerscale, he had finally mastered all 4 elements: fire, air, earth, and even water, though the latter still required more effort than the others. "Race you to the council crest." Harry called, leaping from the cliff without hesitation. Ember's Kale roared in protest. Cheater! The dragon launched himself upward, massive wings catching the air currents as Harry plummeted toward the valley floor. But Harry wasn't falling helplessly. Air swirled around him, slowing his descent and propelling him forward at incredible speed. This was his favorite application of air magic, not true flight like the dragons, but a controlled gliding that let him soar between thermals. Halfway to the valley floor, Harry twisted his body, altering his trajectory toward the distant plateau where the Dragon Council gathered. Ember's Kale gained quickly, his natural flying ability superior to Harry's magical approximation. Too slow, little lord. The dragon taunted as he pulled alongside. Harry laughed and reached for fire, his strongest element thanks to his bond with Ember's Kale. Flames erupted around his hands, not burning him but propelling him forward like miniature rockets. He shot ahead, corkscrewing through the air with a whoop of delight. They reached the council crest simultaneously, Harry landing in a roll that absorbed his momentum while Ember's Kale backwinged dramatically, sending dust clouds billowing across the plateau. "I win," they both declared at once, then broke into laughter, Harry's clear and bright, Ember's Kale's a rumbling growl that vibrated the ground beneath them. "Your aerial skills improve constantly," observed Privet, who waited at the center of the gathering place. The great golden dragon had barely aged in the 7 years since bringing Harry to the Vale, her scales still gleaming magnificently in the sunlight. "Though your competition remains undignified for today's ceremony." Harry straightened, adopting the formal posture Stoneclaw had drilled into him for official occasions. "My apologies, Elder Privet." Excitement got the better of us. Her eyes twinkled with amusement. "Youth is allowed some leeway, young lord. The others gather now." Indeed, dragons were arriving from all corners of the Vale, elders first, then the mature adults, finally the juveniles and hatchlings. Even Dreamfury, who rarely left his northern cave, winged his way toward the council crest, his midnight blue scales visible against the bright sky. Over the years, the ancient dragon had become an unexpected mentor to Harry, teaching him aspects of dragon magic that even Shimmerscale didn't fully understand. Their weekly sessions often left Harry exhausted but exhilarated as he connected with magic older than human civilization. Within minutes, hundreds of dragons surrounded the central plateau, creating a living amphitheater of scales and wings. Harry felt a familiar swelling of pride and belonging. This was his family, his home. The wizarding world that had left him with the Dursleys seemed like a distant dream. Stoneclaw, now moving more slowly with age, took his place beside Privet. The obsidian dragon's scales had dulled somewhat over the years, but his voice remained strong as he called the gathering to order. "Dragons of Draconis Vale and honored visitors from distant sanctuaries," he began formally, "we gather to recognize Harry Potter's mastery of elemental magic, completing the first stage of his training as Dragon Lord." Approving rumbles rippled through the assembly. Even Obsidiantooth, who had gradually shifted from skeptic to reluctant ally over the years, inclined his head respectfully. Shimmerscale stepped forward, her pearlescent scales catching the light. 7 years ago, a human child with extraordinary potential came among us. Today, he demonstrates abilities not seen since the age of the great dragon lords. I present Harry Potter, master of the 4 elements, for your acknowledgement. At this cue, Harry stepped into the center of the circle. This was the moment he'd trained years for, the formal demonstration of elemental mastery. Drawing a deep breath, he centered himself and began. Fire came first, easiest and most natural. Flames erupted from his outstretched hands, quickly shaping themselves into a perfect replica of Draconis Vale, complete with tiny fire dragons soaring through the miniature landscape. Next came air, swirling around the fire creation, lifting it upward and expanding it until it hovered 10 feet above the ground, every detail preserved in flickering flame. Earth followed, Harry stomped his foot, and the ground responded instantly. Stone pillars rose in a circle around him, each taking the form of a different dragon breed represented in the Vale. Finally, water, his greatest challenge. Harry extended his will toward a nearby pool, feeling the familiar resistance. But years of practice had strengthened his connection. Water rose in a sinuous stream, winding between the stone pillars and through the fire creation without extinguishing it, demonstrating his precise control. For a full minute, Harry maintained all four elements simultaneously: the fiery landscape, the supporting air currents, the stone dragon pillars, and the weaving water serpent. Then, with a final gesture, he brought them together in a spectacular confluence that erupted upward in a geyser of elemental energy before dissipating harmlessly into the air. Silence fell across the assembly, followed by a deafening chorus of approving roars. Even the most stoic elder dragon seemed impressed by the display. Privet stepped forward. "The council acknowledges your mastery, Dragon Lord Potter. You have earned the right to wear the scales of recognition." From a carved stone chest, Stoneclaw withdrew a ceremonial vest made of shed dragon scales, donated freely by dragons from throughout the sanctuary, magically preserved and woven together. The garment shimmered with inherent magic, scales of every color catching the sunlight. Harry bowed his head as Privet placed the vest over his shoulders. Immediately, he felt the scales adjust to his body, seeming to meld with his own skin while remaining distinct, a physical representation of his place between human and dragon worlds. "Thank you," he said, voice thick with emotion. "For everything, for saving me, teaching me, accepting me." "The ceremony concludes," Stoneclaw announced. "Let the celebration begin." Dragons roared their approval as younger ones immediately took to the air, performing elaborate aerial displays in honor of the occasion. Harry found himself surrounded by well-wishers, from elders offering formal congratulations to hatchlings begging for demonstrations of fire shaping. The celebration continued throughout the day and into evening, dragons coming and going from the plateau, bringing gifts of interesting rocks, rare herbs, and even a few treasured human objects they'd collected over the centuries. Harry accepted each with appropriate gratitude, touched by the generosity of his adopted family. As dusk approached, a strange sensation made Harry look skyward. Something was approaching the veil, not a dragon, but smaller, moving with determined purpose. The protective enchantments should have repelled any uninvited visitor, yet this object continued forward. "What is it?" Emberscale asked, following Harry's gaze. Before Harry could answer, the mysterious object resolved itself into a bird, no, not just any bird. An owl, carrying something in its talons. The assembly fell silent as the barn owl circled once, then descended directly toward Harry. It landed before him, extending a leg to which a letter was attached. Harry stared in disbelief. No mail had ever reached Draconis Vale, the sanctuary's magical protections prevented it. "How did it find me?" he whispered, carefully untying the letter. Dream Fury, who had remained silent throughout the ceremony, rumbled thoughtfully. "Certain magics transcend even our oldest protections. School acceptance letters, especially from the ancient institutions, carry such enchantments." With slightly trembling hands, Harry turned over the envelope, revealing green ink and a wax seal bearing a familiar crest, though he couldn't have explained how he recognized it. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry addressed precisely to Mr. H. Potter, the Eastern Cave, 3rd Tier, Draconis Vale, Welsh Mountains. Harry looked up, meeting Privet's intense gaze. "It's from Hogwarts," he said unnecessarily. "The Wizard School." A ripple of concerned growls spread through the assembly. Many dragons moved closer, protectively surrounding Harry as if the letter itself might be a threat. "After 7 years," Stoneclaw mused, "the wizard world reaches out at last." Harry broke the seal and unfolded the parchment, reading aloud for the gathered dragons. "Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress." Silence fell across the council crest. Then, predictably, every dragon tried to speak at once. "Absolutely not, could be a trap, the wizards cannot be trusted, 7 years without contact and now they demand, Feretalon's powerful roar cut through the cacophony. Silence. When order was restored, she continued more calmly, "This is a matter for the council to discuss. All others, return to your caves. The celebration concludes." Reluctantly, most dragons dispersed, though many cast worried glances back at Harry as they departed. Soon, only the council elders remained, along with Harry and Emberscale, who refused to leave his companion's side. "You knew this day would come," Dreamfury observed, settling his ancient form onto a flat rock. "The boy cannot remain hidden from his own kind forever. He is not merely human anymore," countered Shimmerscale. "Dragon magic flows through his veins. His power comes from our bond." Harry looked down at the letter, emotions conflicting within him. For years, he'd been content to ignore his human heritage, focusing entirely on dragon magic and culture. Yet something about this letter resonated with a part of him he'd never fully explored. "I think," he began carefully, "I think I should go." All eyes turned to him in surprise. "To understand why, you need to know something I haven't shared," Harry continued. "For the past few years, my scar has been hurting, especially when I dream. And in those dreams, I sense something, someone, searching for me. I believe it's connected to the dark wizard who gave me this scar." Feretalon's eyes narrowed. "Why did you not speak of this before?" "At first, it seemed unimportant, just nightmares. But they've grown stronger, more focused." Harry touched his lightning scar. "Dreamfury helped me build mental barriers, which have kept the presence at bay, but we both believe it's only a temporary solution." The ancient blue dragon nodded confirmation. "The boy carries a magical wound unlike any I've seen in my long existence. It connects him to something dark, something not fully dead." A chill spread through the gathering at these ominous words. "If Voldemort is somehow returning," Harry continued, "I'll need to understand wizard magic as well as dragon magic to face him. Hogwarts might provide answers we can't find here." Stoneclaw shifted uncomfortably. "The wizard world will try to reclaim you, to separate you from dragonkind." "Let them try," Harry replied with a confident smile, small flames dancing briefly along his fingertips. "I'm not the helpless child they lost 7 years ago." Emberscale nudged Harry's shoulder supportively. "Wherever Harry goes, I go too. The bond cannot be broken." Feretalon considered this. "A dragon at Hogwarts? Impossible. The wizards would never allow it." "Then we find a compromise," Harry suggested. "I attend their school to learn what I need, but maintain my connection to Draconis Vale. Emberscale and others could remain nearby, close enough to reach quickly if needed." The council debated long into the night, weighing risks and possibilities. Harry participated as an equal, his status as recognized Dragon Lord giving his voice weight despite his youth. By dawn, a decision was reached: Harry would accept the Hogwarts invitation, but with conditions that protected his autonomy and connection to dragonkind. His response, carried by the same owl that had delivered the letter, was polite but firm: "Dear Deputy Headmistress McGonagall, I accept your invitation to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. However, I must inform you that as a recognized Dragon Lord bonded to the Draconis Vale Sanctuary, my attendance comes with certain requirements that honor both my human heritage and my dragon bonds. I look forward to discussing these arrangements in person before term begins. Respectfully, Harry Potter, Dragon Lord of Draconis Vale." In her office at Hogwarts, Minerva McGonagall stared at the response letter in disbelief before rushing to find Albus Dumbledore. The headmaster read it twice, a mixture of relief and concern crossing his features. "Dragon Lord," he murmured. "So it's true, the dragons have raised him as their own. Is such a thing even possible, Albus? The boy has been living with dragons for 7 years. What sort of education could he possibly have received?" Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Dragon magic is ancient and powerful, Minerva. If Harry has truly been accepted as a Dragon Lord, he will have learned things no modern wizard understands." He sighed heavily. The question is whether he can readjust to human society after so long among dragons. Surely you don't intend to honor these requirements he mentions? McGonagall asked incredulously. I believe we must, Dumbledore replied. Harry Potter has chosen to return to the wizarding world of his own accord, something I feared might never happen. We would be foolish to reject his terms and risk losing him again. He moved to his desk, pulling out fresh parchment. I will arrange a meeting. After 7 years, it's time to welcome Harry Potter home, on whatever terms he sets. Preparations for Harry's departure from Draconis Vale consumed the next few weeks. Stoneclaw insisted on daily lessons in wizard history and customs, attempting to prepare Harry for the strange society he would enter. Wizards use wands to channel their magic, the ancient dragon explained during one session. Primitive tools compared to elemental channeling, but effective for their purposes. Will I need a wand? Harry asked, creating small whirlwinds between his fingers, a habit when concentrating. Likely yes, for certain types of magic. Dragon lords of old carried wands but rarely relied on them. Your elemental abilities will remain regardless. Shimmerscale focused on teaching Harry to disguise his more obvious dragon features, the scale patterns at his temples and forearms that might alarm humans. A simple glamour should suffice, she explained, demonstrating the magical concealment. Though in times of strong emotion or magical exertion, the disguise may falter. Dreamfury's lessons were perhaps most crucial, strengthening Harry's mental defenses against both external intrusion and the strange presence connected to his scar. The Dark One grows stronger, the ancient dragon warned during their final session. Distance from the Veil's protections may accelerate his ability to reach your mind. Maintain the barriers we've practiced, especially while sleeping. Throughout these preparations, Harry spent every spare moment with Emberscale. Their bond had deepened over the years to the point where words were often unnecessary, a connection of shared thought and emotion that transcended ordinary communication. I don't like being separated, Emberscale admitted as they soared above the mountains surrounding the Veil. 7 years together, and now. It's not forever, Harry assured him, leaning forward to pat the dragon's neck. And you won't be that far away. The forbidden forest near Hogwarts should provide adequate cover for visits. Emberscale snorted, a puff of smoke curling from his nostrils. Forbidden to humans, perhaps. Not to dragons. The appointed day arrived too quickly. Harry stood at the entrance to Draconis Vale, dressed in a curious blend of dragon-crafted leather and salvaged human clothing. The scale vest from his ceremony was his proudest possession, though currently hidden beneath a simple shirt to avoid immediate questions. Are you certain of this path? Ferretalon asked one final time. You may remain here, continuing your dragon training. The wizard world has managed without Harry Potter for 7 years. Harry shook his head firmly. I need to do this, not just for me, but for all of us. If Voldemort returns, he threatens dragons as much as humans. I need to understand both worlds to protect either. Ferretalon inclined her massive head in acceptance. Then it is time. Remember who you are, young lord, not merely wizard, not merely human. You are dragon-claimed and dragon-raised. That bond cannot be broken. With final farewells to the gathered dragons, Harry mounted Emberscale for the journey. They would meet Dumbledore at a predetermined location in the Welsh countryside, neutral ground for this first encounter. As they soared beyond the Veil's protective enchantments, Harry felt a momentary pang of loss. For 7 years, the Hidden Valley had been his entire world. Now he ventured into the unknown, returning to a society that had first abandoned him, then lost him, and now sought to reclaim him. They're in for quite a surprise, Emberscale commented, sensing Harry's thoughts. Harry grinned, patting the dragon's scales. That they are, my friend. That they are. Albus Dumbledore waited patiently in the meadow, accompanied only by Minerva McGonagall. He had insisted on keeping this initial meeting small, no ministry representatives, no press, not even Hagrid, whose enthusiasm might overwhelm a boy raised in isolation. Are you certain he'll come? McGonagall asked, checking her watch for the third time. Harry Potter accepted the invitation, Dumbledore replied calmly. I believe he is a young man of his word. A shadow passed overhead, drawing their attention skyward. McGonagall gasped audibly as a massive copper dragon descended toward them, wings creating powerful downdrafts that bent nearby trees. Upon its back rode a slender boy with unruly black hair. Merlin's beard, she whispered. He actually rides a dragon. Dumbledore's face betrayed no surprise, though his eyes twinkled with intense interest. So it seems the rumors were true after all. The dragon landed with surprising grace 50 yards away. Harry slid from its back and approached on foot, the dragon following protectively behind him. Dumbledore studied the approaching boy carefully. This was not the frightened child he'd last glimpsed at Privet Drive 7 years ago. Harry Potter walked with confidence bordering on grace, his movements precise and balanced like a practiced duelist. The famous lightning scar was visible on his forehead, but otherwise he looked like an ordinary 11-year-old, if unusually fit and self-assured. Headmaster Dumbledore, Harry greeted him with a slight nod. Professor McGonagall. Harry, Dumbledore replied warmly. It brings me immeasurable joy to see you well after all these years. Harry's green eyes, so like lilies, assessed them carefully. You recognized me. I wasn't sure you would. You have your mother's eyes, McGonagall said softly. And you look remarkably like your father did at your age, though perhaps more athletic. Harry smiled slightly at that. Climbing mountains and riding dragons builds different muscles than wizard children typically develop. The massive dragon behind him snorted, as if sharing a private joke. And who might your impressive companion be? Dumbledore asked, looking directly at the dragon with respect rather than fear. This is Emberscale, Harry replied. My bonded companion since I was claimed by dragonkind. He goes where I go. McGonagall's expression shifted from wonder to concern. Mr. Potter, while your circumstances are certainly unique, I must point out that Hogwarts cannot accommodate a full-grown dragon on school grounds. The logistics alone, Emberscale won't be attending classes with me, Harry interrupted politely but firmly. But he and other dragons from my sanctuary will remain within calling distance. This is non-negotiable. And how would you call them if needed? Dumbledore inquired curiously. In response, Harry lifted his hand, creating a small but intense flame that shot skyward like a signal flare. Dragon lords have ways, he said simply. McGonagall looked thoroughly taken aback, but Dumbledore merely nodded. Wandless elemental magic. Fascinating. I believe we can work with these requirements, Harry. The Forbidden Forest provides ample space for your companions to remain nearby without alarming the student population. Good, Harry said with visible relief. I was worried you'd make this difficult. We have searched for you for 7 years, Dumbledore said gently. Now that you've chosen to return, we have no desire to drive you away with unnecessary restrictions. His eyes twinkled. Though I suspect Hogwarts may need to adapt some of its rules to accommodate a student with your unique upbringing. Harry smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his serious face. I'll try not to set too many things on fire. Emberscale made a rumbling sound that might have been dragon laughter. There are practical matters we must address, McGonagall interjected, recovering her composure. School supplies, orientation to Wizarding Society, assessment of your knowledge base. I can read and write, Harry assured her. Stoneclaw, one of my dragon mentors, insisted on proper education in human languages and mathematics alongside dragon lore. I'm less familiar with wizard-specific subjects, obviously. Then perhaps we should begin with a visit to Diagon Alley, Dumbledore suggested. To acquire your school supplies and reintroduce you to Wizarding Society in a controlled setting. Harry glanced back at Emberscale, who nudged him encouragingly. All right, he agreed. But Emberscale comes too, at least to the entry point. And I'll need to signal the Veil about our plans. The leaky cauldron's courtyard should accommodate your friend briefly, Dumbledore conceded. Though I suspect his presence may cause quite a stir. Harry's smile turned mischievous. Good. The wizarding world should understand from the beginning that Harry Potter comes with dragons attached. The plan was set. Harry would return briefly to Draconis Vale to gather what few possessions he needed, then meet Dumbledore and McGonagall the following morning for his first venture into Wizarding London. News of his reappearance would be kept confidential until after this initial outing, a privacy that Harry appreciated but doubted would last. As predicted, Harry's arrival at the Leaky Cauldron caused nothing short of pandemonium. Dumbledore had arranged to meet him in a field outside London, from which they operated directly to the pub's courtyard, accompanied by a somewhat disgruntled Emberscale, who disliked magical transportation but refused to let Harry out of his sight. The dragon's appearance in the small courtyard sent patrons fleeing inside, faces pressed against windows in disbelief as Dumbledore calmly introduced the boy who lived to Tom the barkeeper. "Bloody hell," the old barkeeper whispered, staring alternately at Harry's scar and the massive dragon filling most of the courtyard. "It's really you, Harry Potter, back from the dead." "I was never dead," Harry corrected mildly. "Just elsewhere." News spread with magical speed. By the time Dumbledore activated the brick wall leading to Diagon Alley, a crowd had gathered, whispering excitedly as Harry bid temporary farewell to Emberscale. "Call if you need me," the dragon rumbled in dragon tongue, causing several onlookers to gasp at the foreign sounds. "I don't trust these humans." "I'll be fine," Harry replied in the same language. "Return to the safe point and wait. This shouldn't take long." With a powerful downbeat of wings that nearly knocked several spectators off their feet, Emberscale launched skyward, circling once before heading toward the designated meeting area outside London. Harry turned to face the gathered crowd, suddenly conscious of dozens of eyes fixed upon him. 7 years among dragons had nearly eliminated his self-consciousness, but being the center of human attention felt distinctly uncomfortable. "Shall we proceed?" Dumbledore suggested gently, noticing Harry's discomfort. Harry nodded gratefully, following the headmaster through the magical archway into Diagon Alley, with McGonagall bringing up the rear. The busy shopping district fell eerily silent as they progressed, shoppers freezing in place to stare at the legendary boy who lived, returned at last, and in the company of Albus Dumbledore himself. "Is it really him? Harry Potter? Where's he been all these years? Did you see that dragon? He was declared dead last year." The whispers followed them like ripples in a pond. Harry kept his expression neutral, though inwardly he was cataloguing every detail of this strange new environment. The magical shops with their bizarre merchandise, the oddly dressed witches and wizards, the peculiar mixture of ancient and modern, all so different from the primal simplicity of dragon society. "Our first stop should be Gringotts," McGonagall advised, trying to maintain some semblance of normal procedure. "You'll need to access your family vault for school supplies." "I have no money," Harry admitted, having never needed currency in Draconis Vale. "Your parents provided for you," Dumbledore explained. "The Potter family vault has remained untouched, awaiting your return." The imposing white marble building loomed ahead, goblins standing guard at its burnished bronze doors. Harry studied them curiously, the first non-human magical beings he'd encountered besides dragons. "Goblins run the Wizarding Bank," McGonagall explained, noticing his interest. "Fiercely independent and proud warriors with a complex honor system," Harry finished, recalling Stoneclaw's lessons. "Dragons respect goblin metalcraft, though historical relations between the species have been tense." The goblin guard stiffened at his approach, nostrils flaring. One leaned toward the other, whispering urgently, "Dragon scent. Strong." Harry inclined his head respectfully. "Well met, honored guardians. May your gold flow and your enemies tremble." The goblin's eyes widened in surprise at the traditional greeting. They exchanged glances before the taller one responded formally, "Well met, dragon friend. May your hoard grow and your flames burn bright." Dumbledore observed this exchange with undisguised fascination but made no comment as they proceeded inside. The bank's interior fell silent as goblins paused their work to stare at the unusual visitor. Harry's acute senses detected their whispers, dragon-touched, and old magic prominent among them. After confirming Harry's identity, a process that involved a drop of blood on a special parchment, they were escorted to his family vault by a goblin named Griphook, who seemed unusually deferential. "The Potter vault has been sealed since your parents' passing," he explained as their cart hurtled through underground tunnels. "As sole heir, you now have full access." When the vault door swung open, revealing piles of gold, silver, and bronze coins, Harry stared in shock. "All this is mine." "Indeed, Mr. Potter," McGonagall confirmed. "Your father came from an old wizarding family. This is your inheritance." Harry stepped inside cautiously, overwhelmed by the concept of personal wealth. Dragons valued beautiful objects and rare materials, but individual ownership as humans practiced it was foreign to their communal society. Beyond the coins, Harry noticed bookshelves containing family journals, boxes of jewelry, and various magical artifacts. Something compelled him toward a small wooden chest partially hidden behind a stack of galleons. Opening it revealed a leather cord holding a single dragon scale, iridescent black with hints of green. "What's this?" he asked, lifting it carefully. Griphook peered at the item. "According to our records, that scale comes from Nightfire, the dragon bonded to your ancestor Hardwin Potter, one of the last recognized dragon lords before their disappearance from Britain. It has been in your family vault for centuries." Harry's fingers tingled as they touched the scale, a familiar sensation of dragon magic, though faint after so many years. Without hesitation, he slipped the cord around his neck, tucking the scale beneath his shirt where it settled against his chest like a long-lost friend. After collecting a modest amount of currency, far less than Griphook suggested was appropriate for a wizard of his standing, they returned to the surface and continued their shopping expedition. Their next stop was Madame Malkin's for school robes, an experience Harry found distinctly uncomfortable. Used to practical leather garments that allowed freedom of movement, the formal wizard robes felt restrictive and impractical. "Is this really necessary?" he asked as Madame Malkin fussed around him with pins and measuring tapes. "School uniform regulations, Mr. Potter," McGonagall replied firmly. "Though I suspect we may need to make some accommodations for your unique circumstances." While being fitted, Harry encountered another Hogwarts student, a pale, pointed-faced boy who introduced himself as Draco Malfoy. "Potter? The Harry Potter?" The boy's eyes widened, fixing on Harry's scar. "Everyone thought you were dead. Father said you'd been killed by magical creatures years ago." "Not killed," Harry corrected calmly. "Adopted. By dragons," announced a drawling voice from the shop entrance. A tall man with long platinum blonde hair stood watching them, his resemblance to the younger Malfoy unmistakable. "How extraordinary." Lucius Malfoy approached slowly, silver-topped cane tapping against the floor. "The wizarding world has been buzzing with rumors since this morning. Harry Potter returned from the wilderness, accompanied by a full-grown dragon." His pale eyes studied Harry with calculated interest. "The Ministry will have questions, of course." "Mr. Malfoy," Dumbledore acknowledged with a polite nod. "Harry is here simply to prepare for his first year at Hogwarts, a private matter that has unfortunately become rather public." "Of course, Headmaster," Malfoy replied smoothly. "But surely you understand the significance. Dragon bonds haven't been recognized in Britain for centuries. My own family once held dragon binding rights granted by the Wisengamot, ancient privileges that may need revisiting in light of current developments." Harry, who had been listening attentively, felt a sudden chill. "Dragon binding rights," he repeated, voice dangerously quiet. Malfoy smiled thinly. "Historical arrangements between certain pureblood families and dragon habitats within Britain. Nothing that would concern a child, of course." Harry stepped down from the fitting platform, ignoring Madame Malkin's protests. The temperature in the shop noticeably increased as he approached Malfoy, green eyes locked on grey. "Dragons are not property to be bound," Harry said softly, though everyone in the shop heard clearly. They are ancient, intelligent beings who form alliances by choice, not compulsion. An idealistic view, Malfoy replied, grip tightening on his cane. But wizard law has established, wizard law means nothing to dragonkind, Harry interrupted, small flames briefly flickering at his fingertips before he controlled the reaction. Those days are over, Mr. Malfoy. Any attempt to enforce such rights would be unwise. The air between them crackled with tension until Dumbledore stepped forward. Fascinating as this historical discussion is, we have many stops to make today. Your robes will be ready this afternoon, Harry. Outside, McGonagall gave Harry a concerned look. You must be careful about displaying emotional magic in public, Mr. Potter. The Ministry already has concerns about your upbringing. Harry took a deep breath, centering himself as Shimmerscale had taught him. I apologize, Professor. Dragon Lords are protective of their kin by nature. Malfoy's implications were provocative. Understandably so, Dumbledore agreed. But Professor McGonagall is right. Many in the wizarding world will fear what they don't understand about your connection to dragons. Patience and diplomacy may serve you better than displays of power, however justified. Harry nodded, though inwardly he resolved to investigate these so-called dragon-binding rights at the earliest opportunity. If wizards thought they could claim authority over his dragon family, they would learn a harsh lesson. The remainder of their shopping proceeded with increasing efficiency as Harry adjusted to the strange environment. At Flourish and Blotts, he selected his required textbooks plus several additional volumes on magical history and theory, eager to understand the foundation of wizard magic. Your enthusiasm for scholarship is commendable, McGonagall noted with approval. Your mother had a similar thirst for knowledge. Stoneclaw taught me that understanding different perspectives strengthens one's own position, Harry explained. I need to learn how wizards think about magic if I'm to bridge our worlds. Their final stop, Ollivander's wand shop, proved most eventful. The ancient wandmaker emerged from shadows, silver eyes widening at the sight of Harry. I wondered if I would see you, Mr. Potter, he whispered. Though I confess, I never imagined you would come to me with dragon magic already flowing through your veins. Fascinating, most unusual. Harry felt distinctly uncomfortable as the old man measured various body parts, muttering about magical resonances and compatibility factors. Is a wand truly necessary? He asked. I can already channel magic effectively. Elemental magic, yes, Ollivander acknowledged. Wild and powerful, but lacking precision for certain applications. A properly matched wand will complement your abilities, not replace them. What followed was an increasingly frustrating process as Harry tested wand after wand, each producing either no response or destructive reactions. One created an indoor whirlwind that scattered papers throughout the shop, another melted its own handle when Harry merely pointed it. Tricky customer, Ollivander muttered, seeming more excited with each failure. Perhaps, yes, why not? He disappeared into the back room, returning with a dusty box. An experiment, Mr. Potter. Holly and Phoenix Feather, 11 inches, but modified with a core reinforcement I've never used before. He opened the box to reveal a wand unlike the others, the wood seemingly alive with internal patterns that shifted in the light. When news reached me years ago that dragons had claimed you, I created this on mere speculation. Holly and Phoenix Feather, a powerful combination alone, but I added a binding thread of dragon heartstring, freely given by a Romanian longhorn who visited my shop in dragon form. Harry reached for the wand cautiously. The moment his fingers touched the wood, warmth flooded through his arm. Golden and green sparks erupted from the tip, swirling around him like friendly fireflies. The ancient scale beneath his shirt grew warm against his skin, resonating with the wand's magic. Oh, bravo! Ollivander exclaimed. Perfect harmony between wizard magic and dragon magic, I've theorized about such combinations for decades. The Phoenix Feather provides the primary magical channel, while the dragon heartstring stabilizes and amplifies your existing elemental connection. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. Curious though, very curious. What's curious? Harry asked, still marveling at the comfortable weight of the wand in his hand. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. The phoenix that provided the feather in your wand gave just one other, the core of the wand that gave you that scar. 13.5 inches, you. If I had known what that wand would do. He shook his head sadly. But now its brother has chosen you, modified with dragon magic. I believe we can expect remarkable things from you, Mr. Potter, remarkable indeed. By late afternoon, news of Harry Potter's return had spread throughout Wizarding Britain. Reporters from the Daily Prophet besieged the leaky cauldron, forcing Dumbledore to create a magical diversion while McGonagall escorted Harry through a service entrance to the courtyard where Emberscale waited. The copper dragon greeted Harry with obvious relief, growling protectively at the cameras flashing from the pub's windows. Bad? He asked in dragon tongue. Educational, Harry replied in the same language, securing his packages to the specially designed harness on Emberscale's back. We should return to the Vale. The council will want a full report. Dumbledore approached as Harry prepared to depart. Term begins in 3 weeks, Harry. Perhaps you might consider spending some time at Hogwarts before then. It would ease your transition and allow us to address any special considerations your unique education might require. Harry considered this thoughtfully. A reasonable suggestion, Headmaster. I'll discuss it with my council and send word with my decision. Very well, Dumbledore agreed, though something in his expression suggested he wasn't accustomed to students negotiating terms. Until then, Harry. With practiced ease, Harry mounted Emberscale, securing himself between the dragon's shoulder ridges. Thank you for your guidance today, professors. It was illuminating. Emberscale launched skyward with a powerful thrust of his wings, carrying Harry away from the gawking crowd. As they gained altitude, Harry looked back at the sprawling city below, so different from the mountains and valleys that had been his home. You're quiet, Emberscale observed as they soared northward. Second thoughts? Not exactly, Harry replied, absently touching the wand secured at his waist. Just realizing how different their world is from ours. They have so many rules, so many restrictions on magic. It feels confined. You don't have to choose between worlds, Emberscale reminded him. Dragon lords of old maintained their dragon bonds while moving through human society. You can do the same. Harry nodded, drawing comfort from his companion's wisdom. It's just the beginning, he agreed. And whatever comes next, we face it together. As they flew toward the Welsh mountains and the hidden valley beyond, neither noticed the small beetle that had been clinging to Harry's newly purchased school trunk, a beetle with unusual markings around its eyes, now taking flight in a different direction, carrying the biggest story of the decade to the eager readers of the Wizarding world. The following morning, the front page of the Daily Prophet bore an enormous headline, Boy Who Lived Returns, with Dragons. Harry Potter, Dragon Lord and heir to ancient magic, reclaims his place in Wizarding World by Rita Skeeter, special correspondent in a development that has shocked magical Britain. Harry Potter, long presumed dead after his mysterious disappearance at age 4, has dramatically returned to the Wizarding World. Sources confirm that the boy hero, now 11, arrived at the leaky cauldron yesterday morning riding a full-grown dragon and demonstrating magical abilities previously thought extinct. It was incredible, reports witness Doris Crockford. The boy commands dragons like their house pets. And he speaks their language, all growls and roars, but they understand him perfectly. According to exclusive information obtained by this reporter, Potter was claimed by dragons during his childhood and has been raised in a hidden dragon sanctuary, learning their ancient magic instead of traditional wizardry. Experts suggest this unprecedented upbringing may have created a wizard unlike any seen in modern times. Dragon lords were powerful figures in medieval magical society, explains historian Bathilda Bagshot. They could channel elemental magic without wands and commanded the loyalty of the most dangerous magical creatures known. If Potter has truly been recognized as a dragon lord, his magical potential could be extraordinary. The article continued with speculations about Harry's powers, interviews with close sources, who claimed intimate knowledge of his abilities, and thinly veiled concerns about the potential dangers of a wizard raised by creatures classified XXXXX by the Ministry. A smaller article beside it bore the headline, Malfoy Family Revives Ancient Dragon Claims Lucius Malfoy, prominent Wisengamot member, has petitioned the Ministry to review historical dragon-binding rights granted to several pure-blood families in the 16th century. These legal provisions, never officially repealed, established certain families as authorized handlers of dragon populations in Britain. With dragons returning to our shores after centuries of absence, it's prudent to clarify the legal framework governing their presence, Malfoy stated yesterday. Historical precedent clearly establishes the Ministry's authority in this matter, regardless of recent developments. Sources within the Department for Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures confirm the Ministry is reviewing the situation with utmost seriousness. Minister Fudge is expected to make a statement later today. Meanwhile, Albus Dumbledore has confirmed that Harry Potter will attend Hogwarts this September, raising questions about accommodation for his unusual companion and educational background. In a secure meeting room deep within the Ministry of Magic, Cornelius Fudge faced an emergency session of department heads and senior officials. "This is unprecedented," he exclaimed, tossing a copy of the Prophet onto the table. Dragons returning to Britain, Potter claiming some sort of authority over them, public displays of unregulated magical creatures in Diagon Alley. The statute of secrecy hangs by a thread. Amelia Bones, head of magical law enforcement, remained calm. "Let's not catastrophize, Minister. The situation is unusual but manageable. Potter appears to be cooperating with Dumbledore, which gives us an opportunity to establish proper protocols." "Protocols?" spluttered Dolores Umbridge, senior undersecretary. "The boy has been raised by XXXXX classified creatures. He's demonstrating unauthorized magic in public. He should be in protective custody immediately, his dragon association severed for his own safety." Several officials nodded agreement, but Dumbledore, who had been invited as Hogwarts headmaster, raised a cautionary hand. "I would strongly advise against any attempt to separate Harry from his dragon companions," he said quietly. "Aside from the practical impossibility of the task, you would be interfering with ancient magic that predates the Ministry itself. The consequences could be severe." "Are you threatening the Ministry, Dumbledore?" Umbridge asked sweetly. "Not at all," Dumbledore replied with equal politeness. "Merely sharing a historical observation. The last recorded attempt by wizards to forcibly break a Dragon Lord bond resulted in the Great Fire of London. Muggles still teach their children about it, though they've forgotten the magical cause." A uncomfortable silence fell across the table. "What do you suggest, then?" Fudge finally asked, deflating slightly. "Engagement rather than confrontation," Dumbledore proposed. "Harry has chosen to attend Hogwarts, to reconnect with his human heritage while maintaining his dragon bonds. This presents a unique opportunity to re-establish positive relations with dragonkind after centuries of mutual avoidance." "And these claims by the Malfoy family and others?" asked a wizard from Magical Creatures Regulation. "Historically interesting but practically irrelevant," Dumbledore replied dismissively. "Dragons recognize no wizard authority except freely given respect. Attempting to enforce such binding rights would be like trying to regulate the tides, futile and potentially disastrous." After hours of heated debate, a compromise emerged. Potter would attend Hogwarts under special provisions acknowledging his unique status, while Ministry representatives would establish diplomatic contact with dragon representatives through his mediation, a role historically filled by dragon lords. As the meeting adjourned, Fudge pulled Dumbledore aside. "You're certain the boy can be controlled? That he's not a danger?" Dumbledore's blue eyes twinkled mysteriously. "Harry Potter is many things, Cornelius, but I doubt controllable is one of them. However, from our brief interactions, I believe him to be thoughtful, principled, and remarkably well-adjusted considering his unusual upbringing." He paused, considering his next words carefully. Rather than asking if we can control him, perhaps we should be grateful that he chooses to engage with us at all. Dragons have raised him as their own, yet he extends a hand to the world that once failed him. That speaks to a character worthy of our respect, not our fear. In Draconis Vale, Harry sat with the Dragon Council, reporting on his experiences in the wizarding world. The prophet lay before them, magically enlarged so the dragons could read the sensationalized accounts of his return. "They fear you," Stoneclaw observed, massive head tilting as he examined the newspaper. "Fear and fascination, a dangerous combination." "And this dragon-binding nonsense," rumbled Ferretalon angrily. "Do they truly believe dusty human documents give them authority over dragonkind?" Harry shrugged. "Some apparently do. But Dumbledore seemed to understand the reality. He's proposed that I attend Hogwarts early, to adjust before other students arrive and establish appropriate arrangements for maintaining my connection to the Vale." "A reasonable suggestion," Dreamfury acknowledged, his ancient eyes thoughtful. "Better to establish your position from strength than enter their world unprepared." Discussion continued late into the night, weighing options and contingencies. Finally, a consensus emerged. Harry would accept Dumbledore's invitation, accompanied by a small delegation of dragons who would ensure the wizarding world understood that Harry's dragon bond was non-negotiable. 2 days later, residents of Hogsmeade Village were treated to an extraordinary sight, a formation of 7 dragons approaching Hogwarts Castle, the legendary boy who lived riding the foremost copper dragon, his unruly black hair whipping in the wind. As they circled the ancient school, students wouldn't arrive for weeks yet, but the staff gathered in the courtyard witnessed Harry Potter's dramatic arrival at the institution his parents had attended, under circumstances none could have imagined. Emberscale landed with practiced precision, allowing Harry to dismount before the assembled professors. Ferretalon and the other dragons maintained a holding pattern overhead, a clear statement of protective intent. "Headmaster," Harry greeted Dumbledore formally. "I accept your invitation to early orientation, with appreciation for accommodating my unique circumstances." "Welcome to Hogwarts, Harry," Dumbledore replied warmly, eyes twinkling as he gazed upward at the circling dragons. "I see you've brought friends." "A small delegation," Harry confirmed with a slight smile. "To establish appropriate diplomatic relations." As introductions proceeded, Harry meeting each professor with the direct, evaluating gaze he'd learned from dragons, he couldn't help feeling the weight of 2 worlds resting on his young shoulders. He stood at the intersection of human and dragon societies, neither fully one nor the other, yet potentially a bridge between ancient enemies. Whatever came next, one thing was certain: Harry Potter had returned to the wizarding world, but not as anyone had expected. Not a lost orphan grateful to be found, but a dragon lord confident in his power and identity, ready to navigate human society without abandoning the family that had claimed him when humans had failed. Hogwarts would never be the same. Nor would Harry. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.